Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Hannah Wilson. I'm the co-founder and director of Diverse Educators. And I am here with Shani from Young Black Teacher Network, who we collaborate with in thinking about diverse representation in the education system. And tonight is all about celebrating Melissa Cummings-Quarry and Natalie Carter and their fantastic book, which Shani is going to be in conversation with them. So if you don't know who Diverse Educators are, we are an organisation who supports schools on their DEI journey, thinking about how we can increase visibility in the workforce, but also representation in the curriculum. Hence why we are here tonight, amplifying this fantastic book to really think about role models in the library for our girls in our schools. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Shani, who is going to begin the conversation, the interview with our two authors.
Okay, thank you so much, Hannah. Good evening, everybody. First and foremost, grab a drink, make sure you're comfortable, and let's get ready to interview Natalie and Melissa. So first of all, it's blurry. Oh, I've got my copy. Oh, it's a bit blurry, but I've got my copy. There we go, I've grown. It is honestly a fantastic book. So if you haven't already got this book in your library just for yourself, please, you can buy it on Amazon, so definitely pick up a copy. But yeah, let me just introduce Natalie and Melissa. They started as best friends from secondary school, so they've been friends for a really long time. And I was really encouraged when I was reading how they became friends, because they actually bonded over their love of books. And I remember being in secondary school and you'd bond over like Chris Brown or the late issues, but they actually bonded over their love of books, which I just found so inspiring. And not only are they authors, they are absolutely killing it in their industry. So Melissa is now a business development manager and Natalie is a real estate lawyer. So really, really proud to be in this conversation with you both. The book is also compiled with a lot of other Black incredible women who have been able to contribute. Mel B wrote the foreword. You've got Diane Abbott, who does a bit within the book as well, which I think is fantastic. So I'm going to kick off by asking my first question, and I'm over to Natalie and Melissa, just to let us know a bit, what made you start Grown? Like, what made you guys decide that, yep, we're going to write a book and this is what it's going to be about?
Oh, you never know who should go first. I'll go first. I feel like with Grown, it's kind of like just a journey of like friendship and sisterhood. And I think sometimes as friends, you get to a particular point, like, what should we do next? So you've done the things like you've gone raving, you've gone on holidays, you've like spoken about boyfriends, you've cried together. So considering that we are such high achievers and we've got parents who are very much like, on our bums, like, what's next? 5-year goal, 10-year goal. It was like, let's write a book. Everyone else is doing it. Why shouldn't we? And we were very lucky. This sounds really like I'm like taking the piss a little bit, but essentially June Sarpong said to us we should write a book, so that's why we did. So Grown was kind of us, people seeing what we were doing and kind of being inspired by what we were doing and saying there are young girls out there who would love to hear from you guys and see about this journey and kind of get to that glow up. And I think that's just our whole thing, like glowing up. And glowing up isn't just about, looking good. It's about feeling good within as well. And for us, it was really important to kind of have that message for young Black girls, because a lot of the time they're not focused on and they're not thought about. And as we say in the book, it's like you're either like a little girl or a big woman. There's nothing in between. So for us, Grown was kind of reaching out to young Black girls who sometimes may feel that they're not maybe misunderstood or they're not thought about.
Brilliant. Natalie, do you want to add anything?
I think one thing that I learned about when I was kind of going to Black Girls Book Club events and talking to more Black women was that I'm actually quite lucky to have a friend from secondary school as a Black woman, have grown up around other Black girls and kind of had those lived experiences with them and kind of been able to not participate, but to understand like my identity as a young Black woman in London. And that's like the privilege of being around other Black people. And when we started doing Black Girls Book Club, there's a lot of women who hadn't really grown up in that environment. So when they've grown up, they have been like the only Black girl in their class, the only Black girl on their street, the only Black girl on their road. And so a lot of the things that they dealt with were very separate from the experience of the friends around them. And so when Melissa's right, we were like, yeah, we're going to write a book. June Sarkon told us to write a book. But when we were thinking about what the book should be about, it was very like clear that people were saying Black Girls Book Club was amazing. I just wish I had this when I was younger. And we can't really invite, people's children to come and drink alcohol with us and read books and say men are trash. But what we can do is kind of give them things that we wish that we would have had encouragement, guidance, just a safe space, especially for those people that didn't grow up with the friendship group that we grew up with. And even Mel's experience is slightly different than mine, because she lived outside of London, where I lived in Edmonton, so it's very, very different, even though we went to the same school. So it was just about trying to give something back, basically.
You know, having read, I have to be honest, I haven't read the whole book. It's been a very crazy year, but having read parts of the book, you can really tell, and that really resonates with what I've read so far. So thank you so much. When you think about like your experience growing up, obviously the book is full of so much advice, and it's a phenomenal read even as an adult. But what is one piece of advice you would say, this is what I'd tell my younger self?
It's not that deep.
Okay.
In terms of, I think growing up as a teenager was a lot of angst for me, in terms of my perception of what I thought other people wanted for me, what I wanted for myself, trying to understand who I was, measuring how I behaved and how I processed things against regard of kind of a standard of what I thought everybody else thought and what everyone else was doing. And so I find that when I look back at my teenagers, especially when writing the book, I could kind of feel the angst that I had, and I was very kind of preoccupied with focusing on things that weren't that important. And I feel like a key piece of advice needs to be, just take things in your stride, things will work out, and that kind of stressing over things and becoming kind of micro obsessed or being concerned with what other people think and overthinking things. Not that you do reckless things and you don't have any plan or any structure in your life, we don't encourage that, but the things that we stress about and that we focus on and we think are so important are actually not really that important. So just giving people the freedom to just be, which I think is a really important theme in the book. Like, you can just be yourself. You know, this book is about allowing young Black girls to be young Black girls. And so that's kind of what my piece of advice would be. Like, the micro things you're stressing on, it's not that deep. You know, focus on kind of just living your truth and being genuine and true to yourself.
Mel, do you want to add anything?
I guess I'd echo that. I think if I was to be able to be baby girl Melissa, I think I would just say to her, like, you actually know what you're doing. I think I had a lot of kind of feelings when I was younger that I wasn't too sure, like, or should I do that? Or is that the right thing to do? Or am I on the right path? And it's so funny that looking back now, I was probably a bit more screwed on than I am now, and clued up than I am now. And I think I wish I just believed in myself a little bit more. I think I'm a lot more assertive now than I was before. I could see like little elements when I was younger where sometimes it would come through, like if I was upset about something or I thought I'd been treated unfairly. More so, I think I feel like I was more like that for my friends, more so for myself. So I think I'd probably say to myself, like, all those things that you do for your friends and like for your little sister and in your family, like being that kind of support person, do that for you. And I think that would really have kind of maybe improved like my kind of teenage years, kind of just having that little bit of focus on me rather than wanting to do it for others. And so we all have that feeling where we like to do nice things for people. It makes us feel good. But then if you're not focusing, not necessarily focusing on yourself, but if you're not kind of saying to yourself, you know what, you do know what you're doing, like the same advice that you're giving others, why can't you take that for yourself? I think it would have just improved. Now, I was always that person that was there for others. I think I could have been there for myself a little bit more.
No, I definitely agree. I think this book is very much so needed, because when you look at social media, I feel like there's even more pressure now to kind of, oh, you need to be doing this, and you need to have a house by 23, and you need to be married by 26. And I just feel like there's even more pressure on these girls that are coming up. And I'm like, I don't think I could be young again in this generation, because it's scary and there's a lot of pressure. And I think it's really, I appreciate that advice. And I really do hope that our professionals that are in this space right now can take that advice back to the young girls that they work with and say, do you know what, it's okay, like, just chill. And I think especially off the back of the pandemic and the way education is very intense at the moment, because all teachers are thinking, oh, you've got to catch up, you've got to get there. Well, do you know what? It's quite nice to know that just trust the process and you'll be all right. So you guys interacted with like some incredible women, like I said, I mean, within the space. How did you set that up? How did you manage to reach out to so many incredible people?
I think with growing, I think I kind of feel like we did what we were just doing in real life. I know we've got amazing people like Mel B, and you've got Diane Abbott, we've got Candice Carty-Williams, but their names, but essentially they're other Black women who have kind of lived the same types of lives that we have. And I feel like as long as you're like genuine and you're authentic, you can really connect with people. And again, like with Black Girls Book Club, that was kind of founded with that love of books. And as we know, Black women love to read. We are reading, and I think I know like statistics, people say Black people don't read, blah, 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 blah. Black women who are university educated are the people who are reading the most, and that is like a fact. And even though maybe publishing doesn't really feed into that, that's kind of what we know, like on the ground and like grassroots level. So essentially for us, it was just, okay, we want Diane Abbott to be in the book. Hi, Auntie Diane, will you be in our book? As simple as that. You know, I don't know, it sounds very easy. I know it sounds really, really easy, but I feel like in this life, you just treat people like with respect and you honor them. And I feel like when you have that kind of attitude, then it's very easy to kind of pick up yourself and say, look, would you mind being in the book? And I think even some of the people that my friend like Casey's in the book, and another teacher, Zora, she's another educator that's in the book. I treated her exactly how I would treat MLB. The same kind of process. This is what the book is about. This is what I'd love for you to contribute to it. Would you be willing to do that? This is what we think your kind of contribution would give. So yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like we treated anybody any differently, from like the micro influencers, if you want to call them that, or people who are really known in their field, to somebody like MLB. I don't know, by the time the book was kind of written, it was like everybody was the same. It wasn't like Mel B, she's up here and so-and-so's down here. It's like all equal footing. So yeah, it's a bit tricky. It's tricky for me to say, like, how did you get Mel B into your book? I don't know, just asked her.
No, do you know, I appreciate that. And I think, again, it's something we can learn. Sometimes you just got to ask. The worst thing someone can say is no. So just, I asked, give it a good go. You said yeah.
I think is, if you've got a mum like mine, my mum would be like, oh, why don't you put that lady in the book? You're like, oh, what lady? It's like, you know, Diane Abbott. You're like, she's not my friend. And then she doesn't like put pressure, but she'll be like, yeah, but why wouldn't she want to be in your book? And she's like, she's a really good hype woman. My mum is an amazing hype woman. My dad's like even worse, because he won't even know what you're talking about. He'll be like, yeah, do it. Like, what do I need to do? So having like parents like that, you kind of feel like anything is kind of achievable. So as soon as I say anything out loud, oh, I'd love to have Diane Abbott in the book, my mum's just like, okay, so this is how we're going to make it happen, yeah? So you kind of feel like if you don't at least try, you're letting people down, because she will fully well ask me, so did you email Diane Abbott? Did you ask her? I can't say no to my mum, it's embarrassing. So yeah, it's kind of like that kind of pressure of knowing that you have this book and you want it to reach young Black girls. So you are going to go the extra mile, because if not, then that's kind of a missed opportunity.
Yeah, no, definitely. And to be fair, you can, as you're, I know we met at the event, the Grown event a little while back, but as you're talking, it's like reading your book. It's like I'm hearing your voice and hearing Natalie's voice, and it's like, yeah, why not? Yeah, you go for that. And even as educators, like even myself, after like having left you guys, I said, I'm going to apply for that job. I'm going to apply for the next promotion in the next position. And thankfully I got it. So I think as educators that are here, we got to get it, but as educators that are here in that space, like in this space right now, I think there's so many gems that we can take from this, and just understanding, like I think Hannah just put in the chat, you don't ask, you don't get, and we were very good at doing that as children. Mom, can I have this? Dad, Nan? I was very good at that as a child, so I think it's something we definitely need to take into adulthood. My next question. Who were your inspirations? So obviously, yeah, you said, I mean, you've reached out to Mel B, you reached out to Diane Abbott, you reached out to like your friends and family, and you've mentioned your mum. So I imagine your mum's definitely up there in terms of being like one of your inspirations. But growing up as like young Black girls, who are your inspirations?
I was lucky enough to have Sky. So when I was like in secondary school, my big inspiration was actually like Joan Clayton, well, Tracy Ellis Ross, who played Joan Clayton in Girlfriends. And she was a lawyer, and I knew from that young age that I wanted to be a lawyer. So it's so nice to see her, and she was doing so well in her career. That show had a few more adult themes that I really shouldn't have been watching at that time. That now I rewatch, I'm like, whoa, okay, so that's what that joke really means. But it was just nice to see a Black woman like with her curly hair out, wearing really nice clothes, working in a really important corporate firm, having a nice house. So even though she was like a fictional character, I would always, Trouble, when there was a point when her Trouble became more adult after like 7 p.m, I'd always wait up and watch that show like multiple times. So that was, even though it's a fictional character, that was my like inspiration.
Melissa?
Well, growing up, we didn't have Sky, but we'd go to my Uncle Gary's house, and then that's when we'd watch Sky, and I'll see all like these programs of Black women on there. So I had a kind of a different kind of understanding of what I wanted to be growing up as a Black woman. So when I was like watching TV shows, I'd really be looking at the clothing more so than anything. So I was really inspired by like some people, like some of the actresses that I would see. But if I'm being honest, my mum, and I think my mum worked really hard for us to kind of see ourselves and not kind of look at kind of celebrities or kind of people outside of our family. So we spent a lot of time like with our aunties, cousins, anything we wanted to do, it would be like, okay, ask your uncle, ask your auntie. And we spent a lot of time together. Like even as like one of my cousins, Jadine, like we literally grew up together like sisters because she doesn't have a sister. So it was always like being inspired by people within my family. So if it wasn't my grandmother because she dressed beautifully, then it'd be my auntie because she's a real boss bitch. And then like with my mum is just phenomenal. She just gets things done. So if she couldn't do something or she didn't really have that kind of energy of what I was looking for, there was always somebody else to look at. And especially as Natalie said, not growing up in London as well, my parents made a really big effort to ensure that I kind of had those kind of role models to look up to, but they were quite, for them, it was really important that those role models were people within the family, more so than people outside, because they had a real kind of idea as to what they wanted for the life of mine and my sister's life. My parents weren't born in the UK, so they came over, but in their teenage years as immigrants, so they've got a kind of a different expectation for us, as us being first generation. So it was very much like, you're not like those other people, you know, you're not like that, you can't do that. So all of that, yeah, it was very, let's say, oh, Soraya's in the chat. It was very tricky for me to kind of be inspired by people who are not outside because to be fair, my mum wouldn't let me. My mum would just be like, no, you don't know about them, you don't know what they do, you don't know about their family. So yeah, I had to find my own inspiration inside my family.
No, it's incredible that you have those role models, and the fact that so many young girls don't have those role models. And I think the book enables them to find those role models. And Natalie, I'm with you on the girlfriends. I said my parents really let me sit here and watch these shows, and I think it came on Netflix. So I binged a lot of it. No, it was Netflix or Amazon. Like the two kind of blurred. I watched.
They did it, and then that's when I rewatched like the 8 series, and that's when I was like, yo. It's a bit much.
You know what we're watching now? I was watching Hollyoaks and Byker Grove. So I
did watch Hollyoaks too. I've watched it. Yeah.
My dad wouldn't let me watch it. The worst thing is, my dad wouldn't let me watch it, but because they used to let me watch like other random things that came on later, I used to just defy them and watch it anyway because something about that Liverpool like lifestyle. I was really enjoying it. But yeah, I never got that lovely experience of watching like all Black programs all the time. If it did not come on BBC 2 or on Channel 4, then that was it for me. That's it. Desmond's, that's about it.
Desmond, look, I'm way back. Like Desmond's, I don't think Desmond's on TV, but I think I watched Desmond's like on again Amazon or Netflix, something like that.
It's on Netflix now, actually. So I started watching it again.
Yeah, to be fair, I benefited from those gems through Netflix because when I was growing up, I had girlfriends, had trouble TV. Sky is not the same anymore. I scroll for ages. I'm like, there's nothing to watch. I really need to cancel my subscription. But so taking it more into schools and in terms of where you guys see your book within education. So obviously being a primary practitioner, I've looked at your book and thought there are definitely certain elements that I think I could definitely signpost to my young girls, a lot around identity and hair and just understanding that they are valued. I walked into a year 2 class today and there's this little girl and she was like, Miss, is that your hair? And I was like, yeah, it is my hair. And it's like, even at the age of, how old junior to, like 6 or 7, I'm not sure when her birthday is, but even at such a young age, they are aware of their hair is slightly different, their skin color is slightly different. My partner worked in a all Jewish school and he was like literally the only Black member of staff. And they were like, your skin is dirty. And this is like a reception kid. And he had to educate them because within their community and within their experience, they hadn't seen anybody like that. So where do you guys see your book within the educational space? Like what are your hopes and dreams for it?
I think my hopes and dreams is just basically one thing that Melissa would always say about the book that I kind of really appreciated was the idea that it wasn't just a one and done. So, you know, you could kind of read it and be given it and kind of keep it. And so I think my hopes in the educational space is just for girls to have access to it first and foremost, because you can have a resource like this book, but if people don't know about it, teachers don't know about it, schools don't have it in their libraries, it's kind of like, it doesn't make the impact. So just to give girls access to something that is specifically designed for them and written with them in mind. And it was so important for us to make that point that the book was written for Black girls, simply because when we grew up, there wasn't anything specifically for us. We just kind of had to get in where we fit in and kind of adjust and accept and work around what was presented to us. That worked for some of us, it didn't work for others. But I think just knowing that it's there as an option and it's accessible, to me, is the most important thing. Like you say, things about like identity, I think it is important to have conversations about things like microaggressions, but I appreciate like the way we've spoken in the book might not be fully suitable for primary school children without a guide or a parent to explain and elaborate on the examples you've given. But the example I give when I'm talking about my first experience of microaggressions, I was in primary school. I was going to ballet lessons in St. John and St. James in the assembly hall after my lessons. And so it just goes to show that while we may think, oh, she's too young to talk about this, and too young to talk about that, young children are still experiencing things, regardless of whether we as adults feel comfortable about discussing those things with them. So a kind of just main accessibility, making it there as an option, but hopefully using it as a tool to guide people through kind of the more difficult, uncomfortable conversations that need to be had.
Perfect. Just a bit of a backstory. So it's really funny. Natalie actually was a pupil in the school that I now work in. So I just think it's crazy how the universe just kind of brings everyone together and feels very full circle. But no, I do think it's important, and it definitely has its place for younger children. And I think, which is why I really encourage parents to read it and take their children on that journey. So at the book launch that I attended last year, we had a parent who was there, and her child was between the ages of 10 and 12. My memory is a bit not 100%, but she was quite young, and the mum literally said she'd stapled certain chapters together because she said, not quite yet, but there are definitely some amazing chapters around, like chapter 4 is around squad goals and friendship, and I'm constantly dealing with these G6s. Miss, she's not my friend. And I think there's a lot of gems we can take from that, and actually teaching our children through the hidden curriculum about, do you not know, like what friendship and what sisterhood is all about. So what's the book name? So the book is called Grown. Oh, this little blurry. I tried to blur out my background, but there we go. And Melissa's got an array
of a shelf of them. So Grow, Black Girl's Guide to Glowing Up.
And I would definitely, if like I was saying earlier, it's on Amazon. So please purchase. Is there another ways to purchase it? Because I know if you purchase through Amazon, I don't know how it works in terms of
you can get it anywhere now. I think W. Smith, wherever is like your preferred retailer. I know Amazon had it on sale for a little bit. I don't know if it still is on sale. But I think at this point, wherever you want to get it from, you can find it.
I bought it from my friend's sister who is 18 for Christmas. So there we go. We've got Hannah. Thank you very much for putting the link in the chat. So yeah, guys, before they just add to basket, pay for it later. But yeah, no, it is a fantastic book, and we're here talking about how the book can interact with schools and educators, but it can really like impact our own lives. So I'm looking at Secure the Bag, and I think that sometimes we can make like financial decisions and we think, oh, is it too late? And it's never too late. I mean, it's never too late to pick up this book and run with it and say, do you know, I'm going to make certain changes and I'm going to send my life on a new direction. Mel, do you want to add anything to kind of bring it into a school space?
Do you know what? I think for me, when I think about school and what I can remember, it's so long ago now, but I remember like talking about our bodies in school and talking about things like sex and asking if things were normal. And certain things, now I think back, that people are saying were so not right at all, but we kind of believed it. And I think I was quite lucky. My mum was really, really open from a really young age about the body. So any questions I had about body, sex, relationships, she'll just answer them. And she's quite cool, calm and collected, no matter what I asked her. Now when I think back, it's kind of embarrassing. And I don't know how she managed to keep a straight face. I'll say certain things and she'll be like, answer it. And why are you? I'm like, oh yeah, it's just in the book I read. Or I read like Reader's Digest or Dear Deirdre. So I'll be asking some random things about some of like these things that would come in, like these threesomes, all this random stuff in the Sun's Dear Deirdre. And my mum's face, I just remember her just being like, oh, okay, yeah, and just answer it. And I think if you kind of make it a big deal, kids kind of want to find out a bit more, but you'll answer the question and that'll be it. So I think for me, that body language chapter where we talk about the body, and I think we talk about teenage pregnancy, and Soraya July, who's in this chat now, she actually contributed to that chapter and she wrote such a beautiful piece about pregnancy. And I think there's so many questions that young girls, regardless of their background, want to know about their own bodies, and people are so embarrassed to talk about it, to talk about sex, to talk about lots of things, and it's kind of a taboo, especially in the Black community. So I think for me, that chapter, kind of having this understanding of what your body is like and being able to kind of ask particular questions and maybe speak about it with your parents, or if you're in like biology lessons, I guess it's a secondary school now, and if they're still doing it, do they do sex education lessons in school? Do they still do that? I hope so.
I have the amazing pleasure of overseeing it in primary school, and
how does that even work in primary school? I can't
there's pictures, there's videos. It is compulsory. We don't have a choice. I remember when I first got into education, I was like, I have to teach year 5 this, and unlike your mum, I had to really like teach it to myself in the mirror to keep a straight face, because you do. The children giggle, and then you wouldn't giggle, and it's just it's a lot. But no, we had Priscilla, who just obviously she teaches year 6 as well, and she said that she's really looking forward to sharing the book with her year 6s, because there is a lot that we can take out of it. So it might not be something that we're going to take and say, let me add to my year 6 book corner, but again, we can definitely take these chapters and have those conversations. So PSH in most schools is taught that the boys are taught and then the girls are taught, so that the girls and the boys feel they have a safe space to ask those questions. Someone said they love teaching it. Like, feel free to come to my school. We teach it in July, so if you'd like to visit and help, like, be my guest. But honestly, where I lead it, I've grown to appreciate it. But then not only that, I've realized how many parents are not as transparent as your mom and who don't have those conversations with their children. And you think, well, this generation is changing. Like, I remember my old mentor from secondary school said, yeah, they're dealing with like sexting in year 7. I said, year 7? I don't think I knew what the word was. And I just think children, especially in London, are really beginning to lose their innocence. Like, my sister doesn't live in London and she's in her own little fairyland. And I'm like, okay, stay in your fairyland, please. But I definitely feel that there's space. There's definitely space, especially in the year 5 and year 6 curriculum, for a lot of these chapters, because as you move into secondary school and your body changes, even in year 6, I have my girls, I don't want to do, because they have to do gymnastics in their shorts and t-shirts. And and they do start to feel a bit body conscious, and there's nothing wrong with your body changing. So no, I definitely think there's definitely a space for it within the PSHE curriculum. And I think looking at chapter 8, got skills, and it's all around like education and work experience and chasing your dreams and your careers. We have a whole unit in our PSHE curriculum every year in January, where the children are thinking about their dreams and their aspirations. At the moment, they all want to be TikTokers, YouTubers, footballers. And I'm like, guys,
there's lots of money to be made. I wish I knew about that when I was like, having to go to work every day is stress. I'd love to just make some TikTok videos, do a little bit of a TikTok, whatever dance. They're good for them. I don't blame them.
No. I've always like to say, guys, it's okay, great, but we need plan B. Like, we actually need plan B. Just think, if the internet breaks, if the internet crashes, if these apps disappear, then what? So but no, I definitely think it's a useful tool to kind of channel children and getting them thinking about it. Because when I was in secondary school, and I didn't really start thinking about my career until I was, I think, maybe like year 10, between year 10 and year 13. So I think the younger that these children can think about it, the better. Seeing a couple of things pop in the chat, so let me just have a look. Thank you, Hannah. Said there are some great organisations supporting schools with sex education. So definitely going to take that link at the end of this session, because I think it'll be helpful. We've got someone saying, I wish I had this book growing up, because I developed at the age of 12 and felt out of place and not normal as a Black girl. And I think, some of these, thank you so much for that contribution, because some of these girls, I had kids that were taller than me, had bigger boobs than me. I said, you're really in year 6, like how is, and they adapt. And we've had quite a few girls start their periods, and again, like, in certain families it's a big, we've got a child just in like year 4, so they're like 8 having started their period. And again, in certain families it is a real big taboo, and if schools don't do their job in terms of educating these children and just having a safe space where they can have that conversation, it can really, these children are just growing up and not actually understand that this is very normal. It's very normal for your body to change. It's very normal for your butt to get bigger. It's not a bad thing. Like, it's all good. It's fine. So what would you say is your favourite chapters? So if you could pick one chapter, and I think it's really difficult because the book is filled with gem after gem after gem. But if you had to pick one chapter, what chapter would you pick? And why?
Do you know what? It changes every day for me, but I feel like at the moment, I'm really in love with the introduction, and that actually includes Mel B's bit as well. But I think just where we talk about why we wrote the book, I think it's all well and good that we've written these chapters and we have amazing contributors, but I think having this statement of this is why this book is here. I love the idea, like from years and years and years to come, before people even get into like the meat of the book, and you know, because things will change. Some of the things that we're talking about won't even exist anymore. But when people read that introduction, they're going to see our heart and the blood, sweat and tears and the love that went into it. It's like, you know, when you read a book that was written years and years and years ago, and you read the introduction, and then you kind of get a feeling of what that person was thinking at the time. So for me, that's kind of what I'm focused on at the moment, just looking at that. But yeah, it changes depending on where I am and what I'm doing and, you know, what's going on. I love, because a lot of people really like it, that Natalie's religion chapter, I think Yours Faithfully, and I really like that because it really resonates with a lot of people. So I think for me, it's more so people's reactions to it that kind of makes me kind of think, yeah, that is a good, and I'll reread it. But yeah, at the moment for me, it's the introductions, because it speaks to the heart of why the book is needed.
Yeah,
Natalie?
I would say I'd have to piggyback off what Mel was saying. I think the introduction is important, and I think it's the bit that I kind of enjoyed writing the most, if I'm honest with you, because it was easy. It was so easy to be heartfelt and transparent about what we were doing, because that's kind of like the heart of why we have this book and why we're here. I would like to say that the chapter I really like the most is because I like quite a few. I would say kind of like the squad goals, because I feel like it is so important to understand friendship and to understand boundaries and to understand like what type of friend you are and the people around you, what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable. And sometimes like friendships not working out in secondary school, friendships not working out period, can cause like so much angst. And so I think that's a really important chapter, because I remember when I used to be younger and something would happen at school and you'd go and tell your mum and you'd agonize about it and you wouldn't know what to think. And I think it would just, if I could go back and read one chapter, it'd be that, because I know that what things are normal, what things are okay, what things are not okay. And I think, especially when you have an environment where there's so many different ways to interact. Like when I started school, I didn't get a phone till I was 16, but you know, my younger cousins and people in my family, by the time they're 10, they've got a TikTok, they've got an Instagram, they've got WhatsApp, they've got texts. So there's so many different ways to communicate, and sometimes not really having an issue at school doesn't really get left at school. It gets brought everywhere. So to have that guidance about, you know, how to feel about what's happening in your friendships, I think is really important.
No, as you're talking, I'm thinking I might go read that chapter squad goals again and bring it into my year sixes, because navigating their friendships is something that I found that they've really struggled with, and I spent a good hour yesterday dealing with some nonsense. So yeah, I think, and even as adults, I think I've realized that my friendships have changed so much because I've changed as an adult, and I've got busy. My friends need to understand, I love you, I care about you, I want to see you, but you've got to book yourself in because my calendar is very full. And I think
friendship maintenance, that's what I've wrote in that chapter. Friendship maintenance is very important.
No.
So you got to make sure you just connect with your girls when you can. Just let them know what's going on in your life. And I think when people realize that, I think we're all busy, but I think sometimes people feel like, oh, they haven't spoken to me because they've forgotten about me or they don't care about me. And I think it's really to do with communication. I think a lot of relationships, whether they're romantic or platonic, actually are broken because people do not communicate properly. And sometimes it's not nice, like if someone says something to you, like, oh, I didn't like the sound of that. Sometimes you've got to kind of be accountable, and no one wants to hear anything bad about themselves. So I think it's kind of saying to your friend, I'm too busy to see you, sounds like rejection. It sounds like a diss, especially if they see that you're doing other things. Or so I had a lot of friends when we were doing Black Girls Book Club who would say to me like, you're always doing Black Girls Book Club, but you're not making time for me. And I was like, come to Black Girls Book Club then. But for them it was like, but no, that's what everybody else goes to, that's not special, that's not like what we do together. So like with my friends, it's like, okay, friendship maintenance, what can we do to ensure that we maintain that friendship? Is that like weekly phone calls? Is that daily phone calls? Is that voice notes? Is that making sure that we always meet up like every Wednesday? So like one of my girlfriends, once a month, every Wednesday without fail, cocktails. And then now we're in a pandemic, even though Boris said that we have to go back into work, but now we're in a pandemic, it's like, okay, every Wednesday I'm working from your house or you'll work from my house. And that's kind of the pattern, that's just the relationship. But it's difficult. I think it's difficult. And I think one thing, and as Natalie said, actually, when I do reread that chapter, I get a lot of joy from it, because it kind of makes me realize that if you put the work in, then everything will be all right in the end.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. So, well, actually, this is kind of moving a bit fast. So I'm gonna kind of ask one more question. Actually, no, 2 questions. Oh, I'm coming back to that. I'm gonna ask my 2 questions, and I'm gonna come back to the chat. But so in terms of Grown, is there potentially a book 2? Do you guys feel that you got everything you needed to get down in this book, or do you guys think that there's still more and there could be a Grown 2?
Oh, I'm still enjoying Grown 1. Grown 1 is not even grown up yet. She's still like a baby girl. Like she's still trying to like work out how to kind of get her edges and get like the baby, you know. She still doesn't really know how to do her makeup properly. She's struggling. She's probably using like Maybelline Dream Matte Mousse. So I feel like when little baby girl grows up, then we can start thinking about kind of next steps. But for me, I love this book so much, you wouldn't believe. And I feel even to think about writing something else, it'll be like I'm saying, I'm done with you. And I'm not done with her. I just love the book. So I think until everyone's read the book, because people come, even my friends were like, yeah, I read the book, I loved it. And one of my friends said to me, you didn't put me in the book. I thought we were just like doing so upset. And I was like, what are you talking about? You're definitely in the book. They're like, no, I'm not in there. You wrote about this friend and this friend and this friend. I said, you didn't read the book, did you? They're like, yeah, I did. So I didn't. Yes, I actually went and found it, screenshotted it like the PDF and sent it to them. I said, this is your name, yeah? They're like, yeah, I can't lie. For a few characters.
No, you did well to remember everybody. Oh yeah, I think I definitely forget some people by accident.
Right. Look, my sister's not even in the book. So when people say to me, oh, I'm not in the book, I'm like, my sister's not in the book. Like, there are lots of people that are not in it. This book for me was about like the baby girls. So you have to use relevant experiences. So there's no point, for example, for me pulling in my little sister into the book, because it wasn't really relevant in terms of we talking about friendships, because not every person has like a little sister. Sometimes they're the little sister. So for me, it was really important to have like relevant things in the book. But it was just so funny to me, the way like people were like, yeah, I've read the book, it's amazing. And then I'm like, you didn't read it. So I feel like
I wrote it, it's my book. You really
know what I mean? Like, I know what's in there. I feel like once everybody's had an opportunity to read the book, and as Nat said, it's not a one and done. You take time with Grown. Like, you don't read it kind of chronologically from beginning to end. It's when you need it. She's there for you when you need it. So you might want to read the body language chapter because you're feeling a bit self-conscious, or you want to kind of, I don't know, you just want to explore that, or you want to read about the friendships because you're having problems within your friendship, or maybe you're the problem in the friendship. I don't know, maybe you're the bad vibes. You know, you might be struggling with your faith, or you want to, and then you read Natalie's chapter, you know, or you just want to get your money up. So you read, you know, you've got skills chapter. I feel like you just take time with Grown. So until everyone has read Grown once through at least, then we're not writing another one. So I think I'll wait for you. Once you read it tonight, when you've read the whole thing, and then
I'm gonna DM you and be like, I've read it from cover to cover. I
want you to read it, and then when you do your in was it July, you said you do like the sex education lessons. Bring me in to talk about body language, and then is when I will consider writing another one.
I think then, and I don't. To be fair, I don't. I'm gonna hold you to July. I'm gonna put it in my calendar so I get an alert in like March.
Can you imagine? I'm like, when did I agree to talk to little picnics about
this
sex?
Is recorded. This is. I'm gonna. Hannah, can I just get this snippet, just this little bit, because I'm gonna send it to you. But no. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, Hannah said yes. But yeah, no. But no. Would you guys? Obviously, the pandemic has kind of. There we go. Thank you. So I've got 3 people coming. Great. I'll tell my head teacher tomorrow. But yeah, so obviously the pandemic has kind of limited the fact for you guys being able to kind of get into schools. But is that something that you guys want to do? You want to get into schools and reach out to these girls?
I think so. I think for me, Grown is incredible. It's so lovely speaking to like the older women who are saying, I wish I had this when I was younger. But we didn't write it for them. So I feel like once kind of the adults have read the book and they're comfortable with the material, they actually start passing it along to like the girls that it was written for. Because some people are really holding this book to their heart. Like, well, I didn't write it for you, babes. You know? I'm like, no, it wasn't for you. But I get it, because even when I read it, I'm like, yeah, it really does resonate. So I'm not even necessarily opposed of going into schools and doing that. I think it's what the book is for. But I'm scared of outside. So like, I'm scared of it. So if it's like online, then yeah, I'll never say no. But if I've got to like go in,
germs. These children have germs, but
yeah, it's the germs, you see. If I can like use my little Dettol, bring my little Dettol in, wipe everything down, then yes. As long as I'm given that, then for sure.
Just gonna check on this chat. Okay, so we've got Zoom contract. Yep. Okay, so we're gonna just go. I'll sanitize my children before you come. I'll spray them with the Dettol spray that you can get when people walk into your house. Okay, so we've got a question. How do you maintain friendships, especially during the pandemic, or make new friends, especially as adults?
Oh, I think making new friends as adults, I think it's not that it's hard. I feel like the older you get, the more stush you are, and the more you're kind of like shy or embarrassed to say something in case you get rejected. I feel like the best way to make friends is to do things that you like bring you joy. So if you're somebody who is really kind of like swimming, then look for a swimming club. If you like reading books, come to Black Girls Book Club. You know, find things that bring you joy, and then you will find friendship through that. And that kind of my opinion, whether that's online or in real life. I say real life like it's not the same thing, but you know, online. And then even with online, like I've met a lot of people online, and then via Black Girls Book Club, or just like having jokes about certain things, and then you might see them out and about. So you've got to be the brave one to be like, hi, like I'm so and so, or I'm at BG_book club or whatever. And I think it's just bravery. I think with friendship maintenance, is something that you have to be committed to. So like one of my best friends, Tamika, we are committed to our friendship. So like if we have an argument, we have to get over it. There are like no ways around it. So even if I do something to her, she'll like hold it down, and then she'll be like, you're so rude, you know, because you did this in like 1962. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, okay. And where I could like pop off and be like, no, because you did this like last week. I'm like, okay, babe, tell me. I'm like, okay. Because for me, the most important thing is that friendship. I think it's when knowing how important the friendship is to you, and when you recognize how important it is, then you do it naturally. I think it's tricky because one person, thing is, it needs two people to want to be kind of in that friendship. And then sometimes it's like one person wants it more than the other. But I think the best way is if both people are committed to that friendship, then no matter what, you do what it takes. It's like any relationship. You know, like I'm married, like if me and my husband are in like a little bit of argument, a little bit of beef, sometimes I'm like, can't be bothered. And I'm like, actually, no, I can be bothered, you know, because what is the alternative? And if the alternative is that we're not going to be together, then why would I not at least try? So I think in anything you do, even with work, you don't just roll up one day and say, I'm not going to do anything. You try your best, you do what needs to be done. So yeah, I think with anything, you have to do some little bit of maintenance, even on yourself, like in your own self-confidence, you have to do maintenance. So yeah, I think you commit to it. I know in Real Housewives of Atlanta, Nene and Cynthia have a friendship contract. That's because Cynthia's a fool. But to a degree, if you're kind of committed to that friendship, you could have some kind, not necessarily a contract, but an understanding. Like my friend Ashley, I know that I have to do particular things. Twice a month, we're going to do a particular thing. I'm going to go to her house. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And if I don't do it, if she doesn't do it, then something isn't right. So I've got to check in on my friend. So I don't know. You just have to be committed to friendship. I think maybe, I don't know, with the pandemic, it's a bit tricky, but you commit in different ways. And I think that's just the way you go.
Thank you. Let me just head back to the chat. So Hannah said, "Yep, you can rewatch the recording. She's going to email it to everybody. Guys, we might have our own YouTube channel. This is great. It's going on YouTube. So that'll be really good. I think I've covered the questions in the chat, but if you guys have any more questions, we've got about 10 minutes before this is going to be wrapped up. So if you do have any more questions, please pop them in the chat, unmute yourself, show us your beautiful faces.
Can we ask Raya to show us her beautiful face, considering she actually is in the book? She's another contributor, authoress.
Right, you really put me on blast.
No, you're not going to do it though.
Okay, I'm here. I'm here in my onesie, like sitting in my pajamas at home. Hi.
You look good though. Hi, babe.
Yeah, no, really enjoyed tonight's chat. Actually, it's been nice. I haven't obviously we haven't had the book club event for a little while, the pandemic and all. So it's been nice, and the contribution with YBTN as well has been great. Yeah, no, I've been using the book quite a lot in school actually. Not the body language chapter, you know, in primary school now. So that part I have to kind of figure out how I'm going to slot that one in. But the identity chapter I've used quite a lot, and also the Yours Faithfully chapter I've been using quite a lot. So that's been going really well. Particularly year 5, they've really enjoyed it, and they've had loads of questions and stuff to ask and things like that as well. So definitely recommend using as many of the chapters as we possibly can in the book. I'm going to try and figure out how I can get the body language chapter in without having parents knocking on my door. So that will be something, but I'll let you know how that one goes. But yeah, no, I'm just really looking forward, and I totally agree with what you said about it being a book for life. Something that it's not linear. You just pick out which chapters are relevant at that time, and that's what's been working for me in terms of using it in school at the moment, and using it with my daughter as well, who is in secondary school. She's read the whole thing back to front. Really cringed reading my section on becoming her mum. Died completely, but she's read the whole thing, and I think a lot of it resonated with her as well. So yeah, so I just want to say thank you, girls.
Thank you for contributing.
Oh, that's brilliant. I might connect with you after this if that's all right, because to be fair, I want to see how you've utilized the book in your school, and it'd be really good to just to kind of brainstorm and share ideas. So definitely. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? It could be about the book, it could just be about Natalie and Melissa's journey.
I'm going to ask one. Have you had any criticism or hate that you've had to navigate from publishing the book? Like, there's loads of praise online, but have you had to navigate any negativity?
No.
That's so good to hear. That is so good to hear.
To be fair, I feel like someone tried to hate on my book. I just be like, shut up. Did you write a book? People don't realise how much effort we put into it. I just feel like it will just go over my head. But I think we've been so lucky. We took so much. I don't think people realise how much time we took with it. I think we spent so much time and eking things out and rewriting them to get it just right, so that every young girl who read it would feel included. So I'd actually be quite upset if somebody came back and said, you know what, you wrote this and this really upset me or it offended me, because the amount of different people that I spoke to, the amount of people that I was like, can you just read this for me, or what's your opinion? Yeah, it's just a lot of different things that in order to get this book just right, because not like it's our only chance, but when you put something like this out into the world and you put your name on it, you have to get it right first time, especially when it's aimed at young girls. If it was books like for an adults, essentially it's like whoever wants it can pick it up. But when you put 5 young black girls on a cover of a book, you make it the colour purple because we love the colour purple, you're making a statement. So yeah, if we did get criticism, I'd be very annoyed. I can't lie. I'd be one of those like authors who like, do not talk about my book like that.
But just to challenge you, I don't think you've been lucky. I think you've both worked really hard. Do you mean, so you've made your luck? And Priscilla's just put in the chat, I love your energy. Honestly, you are both joyful, and the energy you bring, you deserve the best of luck with the book. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, so B has sent us a question as well. So it says, you formed Black Girls Book Club, a celebration of literature by Black female writers, and it is clear you both have a huge love for literature, and there are some amazing book recommendations in Grown. Did you include these based on your own experience of English literature and reading in school? So that's question 1. So
say that again.
Long story short, basically, was it through your love of literature in school that you kind of based this book on?
No. I think my love for reading came from my mum. Like, before I was even born, my mum created, or curated, I should say, a library of books for this daughter that she thought she was going to have, like with an idea of what she wanted me to read, etc. I think we've always loved reading. I think it's the lack of Black books in the curriculum didn't inspire us to put like lists of books in the book, if that makes sense. We put we put these lists of books in the book because if you don't read books by Black authors, then you're not well read. And I think there's this kind of idea that because you've read the classics, and I've read the classics and I love them, and I think that there's this idea, if you read the classics, then you're well read, or you're educated, or you're intelligent. And for me, that's not necessarily the case. So it was really important that at that young age, especially when we were searching for books by Black authors, just to make it easy. You know, we've all done that thing, like a book about this written by a Black person, or I've spoken to friends that said, oh, you know, do you know a book by a Black author that I could read, We wanted to make it kind of normal and natural, that rather than read Pride and Prejudice, this is a Black version of that book. You know, rather than read this particular thing, this is a Black version. It was kind of to make Black girlhood, Black sisterhood, and things that center Blackness the norm. You know, when you talk about the classics, it's always Pride and Prejudice. Why can't it be Their Eyes Are Watching God? Why can't it be, you know, Noughts and Crosses? Why can't it be The Hate You Give? I think it's just to flip everything on its head. But I don't think, for me, I don't think it was inspired by the lack of curriculum. So I wasn't thinking, if I'm being honest, I didn't center whiteness in what I was doing. So I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about the Black girls. So yeah, I don't think I thought about anything other than what do Black girls need, rather than what is going on outside of that, if that makes sense. I don't know if that answers the question.
No, I feel like it definitely does. So obviously off the back of the Black Lives Matter movement, there's been a massive shift in education around kind of schools making sure their libraries are diverse, that their curriculum is diverse. So in terms of essential reads, so again, this is B's second question. So what books would you say are essential reads that should be included in the curriculum? So I know you mentioned The Eyes of God Are Watching You.
Yeah, The Eyes.
Depends, what age are we talking about?
Let's go with secondary, and then if you've got any recommendations for primary, I'll happily take them. But let's start with secondary.
I would say The Eyes Are Watching God, The Colour Purple, I Know Where the Cage Been Seen. Those are like the very like high level kind of books. I'm thinking more recent books that I'd like to see, especially like YA books. Blackout, which is a book written by 5 Black I think it's more than 5, isn't it?
I think it's
5 YA, 6 Black YA authors. They all write different perspectives of a blackout in New York for one day. They're kind of all centering like the experiences of young Black people. The Hate You Give, as well, by Angie Thomas. There's quite a few books by Jason Reynolds. I've read quite a few, I can't remember off the top of my head, that I think everyone should definitely read. To be fair with you, there's so many books. I'm actually having like a brain freeze trying to think of all the books I would want people to read. I'm trying to do a mixture, because I know there's the kind of old back in the day back in the day classic.
There would be at this point, yeah.
I feel that you need to read to just understand like the progression that has been made in Black literature, you know what I mean? But I know that there's a mixture, and there can be books read from all different time periods. So that's what I'm kind of thinking.
Yeah, I'd like to see a little bit of a focus on Black British literature, if I'm being honest with you.
So like Malorie Blackman, but I think that's already on the curriculum, isn't it?
Yeah.
Malorie Blackman, yeah, but I think a bit more, because there's some amazing kind of YA authors, like Alexandra Shepherd being one. I was going to say Sarita Domingo, but she doesn't use that name for YA. S.A. Domingo. Then we've got Patrice Lawrence being another. Yeah, but there's so many YA Black British authors, and I think we do ourselves a bit of a disservice and I do this quite a lot anyway, going straight to the US, because that's kind of what we grew up on. But I think, especially as educators, I think we kind of do ourselves a disservice when we don't focus on Black British writers and say to young Black British people like children period, that there are Black people doing the things in this country and doing it spectacularly. So when you're kind of not being able to engage kids in books, well, maybe because they're not relating to things that are going on in America, in LA, like this is London, you know? So I feel like a little bit of a focus on Black British literature would be really, really beneficial.
I definitely agree with you. And to be fair, although the events that surround Black Lives Matter and the reason why it kind of really kind of escalated during the pandemic, I think a lot of good things have come out of it, and I think schools realizing that they need to change their curriculum is definitely one of them. So we've got, I know it's 8 o'clock as well, it's like 1 minute 8. We do have a couple more questions, so I'm going to quickly whiz through them. So we've got, is colorism talked about in the book?
Of course. Think about it like this. Grown essentially is what it means to be a Black girl glowing up or growing up. And you cannot talk about the Black girlhood experience if we don't actually just get to the root of things like colorism, texturism, if we don't discuss microaggressions. I think it's all well and good for us to talk about, you know, self-love and identity, etc. But the whole specific reason of being Black girls, it would be silly if we didn't actually just say, look, we need to get to the root of it. And I think that was really important to us. So yeah, I think, what's the chapter called? I can't remember now. Reclaiming My Time, I think. That has a lot of it in there. Natalie's skincare chapter has a lot of that in there. We talk about pigmentocracy in that as well. And then the hair chapter also talks about texture, etc. But essentially it's like the definitive guide to being a Black girl and all the random things that you think about but maybe don't feel comfortable to speak about.
Thank you. And then our last question is from Joy, and it says, did you encounter any difficulties during the writing process? And if so, how did you deal with them?
I think the difficulty was just the time period that we were writing in, because it's quite a difficult time period to be writing about this subject matter, because we were writing during the summer of 2020. So it was just a kind of emotional backdrop. So I think it kind of made everything, not that we didn't take it seriously and think that our writing was important and what we're doing important, but it just made it seem so much more urgent and so much more important at that time. So I think that was kind of a bit difficult as well, just in terms of you're writing about your own lived experience anyway, so it's quite intense. And then to have a background where everyone is discussing blackness, discrimination, things like changing the curriculum, the way we see the way we see and interact with people, what diversity inclusion really means, what it really means to be black in this society, and racism. So it just kind of put all of those things that we experience in our day-to-day lives in the forefront in a very kind of highlighted way. Not that we were holding out for it to cause any like significant change, but it just made the subject matter of what we're writing just more in our faces and more important.
Okay, thank you. No, and then Mel, do you add anything or?
To be honest with you, writing it, that was the struggle. Forget the fact that we're in a pandemic, actually just putting pen to paper. I think that not a lot of people realise that we speak a lot about our own experiences, and having to dredge that up because it was actually a bit traumatic. So for me, we literally put everything onto the paper. And again, as I say, if this was aimed at kind of older women, then we could have been a bit more abstract. But it's really hard to say to a young girl, don't do this, or don't do this with your friends, or if you're not actually saying the truth of what happened to you. So there are a lot of experiences, and hence the reason why I have so many different people in the book, because we didn't necessarily want it just to be our own view. So that's why we have people like Zora, Mel B, Candice Carty-Williams, all of these different people that we've got, because we wanted different experiences. So yeah, for me, sometimes it was just writing it, kind of bringing up all these ideas and thoughts of black girl joy and like black girl magic when I'm just tired, a long day at work, and I've got to write this like a chapter. So yeah, it was tricky at times, but growing was birthed out of it. So it's like it's all under the bridge now. I won't complain anymore.
No, definitely. I think the blood, sweat, tears, and everything that you guys went through to actually write this book is incredible. It's an incredible read. So I'm going to do another plug. If you haven't added it to your Amazon basket, please do, because it is fantastic. And definitely, I think within education, there's massive scope for using it within PSHE, within just, I know like a lot of secondary school teachers and sixth form teachers, you have like form time. And to be fair, I think there's also the space for you guys to just do something as like an after school club, and even invite the parents in, because I'm thinking, do you know what, okay, when you guys come, yes, we're coming in July, can I invite our parents in, and can I actually encourage them to actually purchase the book and have that conversation with their parents, not with their parents, with their children. But thank you all so much for attending, especially on a Thursday evening. Have a fantastic weekend. Thank you so much to Diverse Educators for allowing me to host. It's been a privilege. Natalie and Melissa, you guys are amazing. From when I met you guys, I was so inspired. So thank you both so much for joining us. Hannah, I believe I'm handing back to you.
Oh, I think you've done it, mate. I think you've done a brilliant job. And
okay.
Natalie and Melissa, just very, very impressed with what you've created. And I think the book's going to create real legacy.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, final question. Black Girls Book Club, do we have any events coming up? Because I feel like I missed out. I feel like I need to come.
Every day people ask me, if you look at our inbox, the amount of people asking us to do events, I'm like, I am scared of outside.
This has been great.
Do you know what? Yeah, maybe. Do you know, it's not the same though. Like Soraya will tell you, it's not the same not being together. So it's just like, it just makes me sad when we do online events. I'm like, okay, now we could have been eating some chicken wings, could have been having a glass of champagne, we could have been cussing people. But like now it'll be like, okay, events ended. Hannah will just like press that button, and then it's done. So yeah, I'm hoping that perhaps when things get a bit better, then we'll be in a position to. But right now, I'm scared of outside.
Maybe in the summer, because obviously people get this warm up,
be a shout.
Have like some picnics or something. So, oh, a minute, we've got a message.
Okay.
It's thank you.
Thank you. Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for joining. If you haven't eaten your dinner, enjoy your dinner. I'm going downstairs to raid my nan's kitchen. So yeah, thank you so much. Have a fantastic evening, and hopefully I'll see you guys all soon.
All right, take care, guys. Bye.
Cheers, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.